shootings in the Toronto area this weekend. 2 men were killed yesterday, another Saturday
Around
night.
1:20 in the afternoon, a man was shot numerous times.
Growing allegations of corruption in the Toronto police force. This month, 2 officers have been suspended ahead of the police union
Barged into an
decide
apartment and
whether
shot a 25-year-old man.
But
Another man was shot and killed Saturday night at a Northampton.
Members of council, I believe we have quorum. We have quorum, members of council. I'd just like to make an announcement. First of all, I know that we mentioned 2 p.m. today at 12:30 in the members' lounge, we're commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Warsaw Uprising and veterans of the Polish Army ex-servicemen who are present. You're invited to the reception during the council
Good, how are you doing?
Ben, where did you want me?
I
Back here?
yeah, sure, we can do it.
Works. Back here works as
Anywhere
well.
there's decent lighting.
There's really good lighting in here.
Okay, sure. Okay, so, Michael, why did you invite the chief here today?
I invited the chief to come to City Hall today to provide a briefing to members of council who are interested in, obviously, the issue of gun violence and gang activity and street violence in the city.
If it doesn't have to be in camera, whatever.
I think it's incumbent on council members to really get a good sense of understanding of that, and the person who can best provide us with the needed information, the statistics, is the chief. Additionally, it provides councillors with an opportunity to ask pertinent questions of the chief.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to get started in the interest of time. The chief has requested that we have a closed portion. I'd like to ask members of the media and the general public to leave the room at this point. I know that there is a film crew that's here as part of a project that's ongoing. They're allowed to stay. They are not the media. So I'd ask at this particular point in time the media to please leave the room. Thank you.
By now, you would probably get the impression that the City of Toronto is going to hell in a handbasket. Major cities everywhere are going through this same kind of difficulty. However, we can't overlook the fact that this is a significant change in the environment in this city. It can be estimated, looking at intelligence, the victimization data and evidence, that over half of the 66 murders last year were related to gang violence. We are doing what we can, but this is way beyond just a law enforcement problem. This is a problem for the entire community to solve.
I'm sorry, guys. I'll be happy to talk upstairs after the council meeting resumes, but it has to resume in 4 minutes. Otherwise, it's adjourned till tomorrow, and I got to go do that.
We have a quick bite?
Yeah, quick bite.
It was very helpful and informative. We're all concerned about public safety in Toronto. That's why council is going to do what it can to fulfill its part, which is to invest in neighborhoods and kids at risk.
Are you soft on crime?
And the chief's very concerned and very clear that you have to invest in people as well as investing in enforcement. We want to do both.
We can accommodate you.
We can go outside.
Well, it's not here. I'm okay here.
All right, here. You want to come around? We're about okay?
Has Mayor Miller done enough against crime?
Well, you'll have to ask the mayor. Is the mayor soft on crime? You'll have to ask the mayor.
So you won't say that the mayor's done enough?
What are you asking the city council?
Give the man a chance, and he and I have had a number of meetings.
Fantastic. It's great to
Hi.
see you.
Good afternoon. How are you? I'm Michael Thompson. Very nice to meet you. I'm sorry for your loss of your son. It's good for you to be here. It's as a result of the loss of your son and many other losses that other mothers and so on have felt in the city here. I'm pushing forward these types of initiatives.
Definitely. Something's got to be done.
Absolutely. And this is not a publicity stunt. We're not trying to get media. This is something that I brought to the mayor when I first got elected. My first meeting with him, I said, we need to deal with this. It's a major problem. If we don't deal with it now, it's going to continue to be a further burden in our society, and we've got to keep it very high on the priority list.
And I'm glad that you're saying that, and I'm glad that you're doing that, because a lot of people, when things happen and the spur of the moment, they get all fired up and they jump up and they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and then it all levels off and nothing's done. Justin was everything to me. He was my life. When that child was killed, part of me died with him. I think about his last moments on that bridge. I know my phone rang and I picked it up and I didn't get anybody. Don't know if Justin tried to call me. If he tried to get up, was he in pain? I just can't understand what happened, and I can't get over what happened on that bridge. But I said I am determined to go on and do whatever I can to make a difference. Crime anywhere is a threat to safety everywhere. We need to be able to go together as one to conquer this. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But if collectively we can all take a bite of that elephant will be gone in no time. Thank you very much.
You're listening to a live town hall meeting on News Talk 1010 at Toronto CFRB. Bill Carroll and Spider Jones.
Tortured by Metro Police and 13th Division. And I'm tired of telling Chief about it and he isn't doing anything about it.
All right, you're listening live to a town hall meeting on News Talk 1010 at Toronto CFRB. Mayor Miller, there is a political question that's floating around about Chief Fantino's future, and when will that be addressed by you and by the Police Services Board?
Well, it's the Police Services Board, and the Chief and I think have mutual respect to working well together, and that's the board's decision, and they'll be making that at the appropriate time. It's not the mayor's decision, and I wouldn't really feel comfortable commenting on anybody's personal contract.
I want my child back! That's no peace! No peace! No! I want back my child! To help you! Then what you must help you! Let us help you! I want my yes! I'm a law back instead of you! We're going to help you! Let me off! I want my child!
A 16-year-old boy has been discharged from Sunnybrook Hospital only hours after undergoing emergency surgery for several gunshot wounds. Sources say for the
Earlier in the day, 30 shots were fired outside the Flava nightclub on Spadina. In Brampton yesterday, a doorman at a private party was shot in the chest.
17-year-old boy is to appear in a Hamilton court today. He is charged with manslaughter. The teen was arrested yesterday after an 18-year-old man died from apparent head injuries. Police say Jonathan Romero
I am not saying that Toronto is an unsafe city. On the contrary, Toronto is one of the safest cities in North America, safer than many smaller cities, in fact. But it takes a lot of effort to ensure safety in our community is maintained. It is important to understand that a decrease in overall reported crime does not equate to a decrease in the demand for police services or the police workload. It is our intention to work with City Council to reach budget targets, to safeguard policing services levels and ensure optimum safety, security, and quality of life for both our citizens and our police officers.
Okay, so now that the pleasantries are out of the way, we have the questions.
In terms of overtime, how much is being accommodated in this budget for that? What's your total?
$5.8 million as the request.
5.8 is all that you will need for overtime,
That's
or
overtime.
that's your increase
No,
over
that's
last year?
the total. That's the total.
Total
request.
overtime? And
does
not
not
for
in-
just provincial courts, but
No, that's overtime. That does not include court. Do
Okay.
you want the court number?
yes, please, as well.
The court number is $11.8 million. This
Okay.
is just cash when people cash their court or overtime.
What does it cost out of your police budget to pay for your horses and the care of them, and just the fact that we have police officers on horses?
I'll have to defer. I don't even know that either.
Okay.
You know that?
Can we add up all the numbers because they're in different line items when it
Yeah,
comes
you
to
can
the
get
horse
back
feed
to me on that maybe later this afternoon.
When is the last time a value for money audit has been done of police services, both on the civilian side, on the police side, from an outside group? So that I think the public can be assured that dollars are well spent, and the councillors can be assured that dollars are well spent.
There have been a number of reviews in the past, and outside agencies have come in. One was just prior to my arrival here in 2000, year 2000, about restructuring the police service. There have been others in the past, but during my tenure there have not been, no.
If everybody can take your seats, please, and we'll get started.
How you doing, sir? I'm Rob Ford. Nice to meet you.
Rob, Ed Huey, how you
Ed,
doing?
Excellent. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for giving me and others the opportunity to say a few words. And I've got some good ideas for the budget of the police. One is I read in the paper the other day about, I think, 6 officers charged with a serious crime. They're not working till the case is over, but they get fully paid with all the benefits. There's $1 million. This is unheard of in the private sector, and it's done in the police force. Sure, they need money, but this to me is dead wrong. I know you all donate your time here tonight, and I want to know, because we are taxpayers, are you getting double pay, all of you? There's 50 officers. Tell me.
I think you've had enough time at the mic. Thank you very much. I've
See-
been working since 6 o'clock this morning, and I'm not getting
I
extra
know.
money.
This is not honest, because
Yeah.
you're getting double paid, and we don't need 50 officers here, 5 or 2, because we don't carry guns. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate your insight. You should run the police department.
Mayor David Miller has called on the province's top judge to help find ways of stopping gun violence in the city. Ontario Chief Justice Roy McMurtry will head up an advisory group on how to make Toronto streets safer. The announcement was part of a larger plan the mayor released yesterday aimed at cutting down on guns, gangs,
You don't sound too enthusiastic. I know, yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. Now, you know what, in fairness, I mean, that's the concern I have. But the problem is that certainly I don't expect the mayor to be a miracle worker. There is a process, there is a system that we've got to work through in order to combat and affect changes. Unfortunately, it does take some time. I've got to give the mayor a tremendous amount of credit for what he has brought forward, and clearly what he's brought forward does incorporate some of the ideas that I propose. But clearly, the mayor has come forward with something that it's a strong framework that would be effective, in my view, across the city. So I'm happy with what I see here, but clearly there's an opportunity to refine it, to make it better. You're right. I share the cynicism that I'm hearing from you, and I'm sure I'm hearing from others. Yeah, I'm aware of it, but clearly.
March 22nd, Police Services Board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I don't think that Chief Fantino agrees with that, although he has brought forward another $4 million worth of cuts that we can do. So, but we're still only up to we're less than 7 million, and we have another over 7 million to go before we even hit the target. The reason I want us to try and hit the target is because next year the budget is going to be even tighter than now. So if we don't rein it in quickly, we won't be able to cope with next year. I don't really think that there's the need for the bushfires that are going on right now and the terror that people are going through. And I think they're waiting for me. So okay, thank you. Bye.
Sorry, are you waiting for me?
Here she is.
I was always here.
Oh, I didn't see it.
That's all right. I was waiting for you.
I wanted to tell everybody up front that given the large number of deputations, I'm going to be kind of tough on the 5 minutes. If you can't say it in 5 minutes, I would like to hear from you. I know the board would like to hear from you. Please put it in writing.
I would like to address the idea that because the Toronto Police Service budget is the biggest part of city spending, that it deserves to be cut. It is a well-known fact that our armed forces have been and are currently underfunded and understaffed. They are stretched to the limit. It is also a well-known fact that Canada is a target for terrorists. When there is a terrorist attack in Canada, it will not likely occur in a small town, but in one of its major cities, and the most likely target will be Toronto, the economic hub of Canada.
The previous regimes at Queen's Park and City Hall were so mean-spirited and short-sighted that it is fair that I, as a community leader, can categorically say that they designed the demise and decay of Toronto. The police have been the only institution over the decades to get a trailer load of money in the guise of keeping our streets and communities safe.
We have more guns on our streets than ever before. Crime is up and gang violence is escalating. We have real fear in our communities. People are terrified. Who's going to be next? One of my kids maybe, caught in the crossfire? One of your kids?
The organization is top heavy. There were an awful lot of officers involved in what you'd call non-police work, administrative work. And if you go through it, you begin to see very large numbers pop out. And they don't appear to be doing things that one would associate with the kind of police work that people have talked about today they're needing. Instead, they're involved in things like budgeting and financing, fleet management, compensation, and on and on.
30 seconds.
It's our opinion that more money is not the answer. The answer is better deployment of our resources and better controls by the police services board that we are in fact getting what we are already paying for and allowing the trained police to do their jobs. Accountability is the answer, and it appears at this time we do not have any. Thank you.
I actually have a couple of things I wanted to say. I think that there are a number of issues that we need to look at, and I think with hard work we can do more. But I would say that I'm concerned about where we're headed next year. Councillor Otis.
Well, I had questions of Councillor Fillion.
Sure.
Are you prepared to support the police chief's recommendation of March 17? That's before us, which is item number 7.
I was supporting it.
Yeah. Are you prepared to support it?
I'm prepared to send it on. I'm not prepared to support it as in that's all that should be cut or can be cut.
You're not prepared to support the chief's recommendations. You want city staff to look at the budget, come forth with a recommendation to us.
No, I want city staff to assist us in going through the budget in a whole lot of detail and doing the kind of comparisons that it's extremely difficult for us to do on our own.
Mr. Chairman, I'm afraid I have another appointment I can't miss. I have to go. So if you want to pursue this on Thursday.
But Mr. Otis, let's put it on the record. What you're doing by leaving the meeting is ending quorum and ending a discussion, and I think that's irresponsible.
Yeah. Yes.
Pardon me. I've been here all day, so don't tell me I'm irresponsible.
If you want to,
I have another commitment.
Sir, if you would like to come back this evening, I am prepared to reconvene this meeting this evening so we can make decisions. So if you want to come at 7 o'clock or at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Well, we've lost quorum, and I'm asking the board if they'll meet at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning in this meeting room.
Can't meet at 8 a.m.
You made it a bit later, 9 o'clock, 9:30, why don't we do it at 9:30?
I'll contact Councillor Otis's office.
9:30 is tomorrow.
We'll do it at
That's
9:30,
fine.
and we can't conduct any further business, which I think is a real shame.
I think it's a real shame. That's outrageous.
Which shows the problem of quorum.
I've never seen anybody just break quorum like that.
Unless they purposefully are breaking quorum. So one can only judge from this behavior, that he was purposefully breaking quorum, and he waited until we were very close to the end to do that. Big mistake. So I think this was all a waste of time this morning then. Hello, Councillor. I guess this is all about putting pressure on him to
Putting pressure on Alan?
to change his position. I don't think he will, but I wonder if that's part of the tactic.
Well, I think it was. I don't think it was well thought out. I think it was just, gee, a vote's going to go the way I don't like it here, and so let me buy some time. I'll walk out of the room, and then I'll, either go take instructions from somebody. I'll check with the police and see what they want me to do, or else I'll just stall it for a while. And
I mean, this is a game that can be played because we can't force him into the room. But unless he's prepared to put off the Police Services Board tomorrow, it's just a delay tactic. And the other
thing is, what if he does the same thing on Thursday every time he doesn't like a vote?
he just walks out. It's very irresponsible.
Obviously, we need to contact the province about the urgency of getting some new members.
Yeah.
Are you going to step in if he doesn't show, if he continues to do this? Do you have any plans?
Well, I think one of the things I'll be speaking to the province about is making sure that they appoint their members of the board, because the board can't be hamstrung by these kinds of tactics. We're at 2 people down, and the province needs to act quickly to appoint their appointees so that the board can get on with its business.
Until noon of Monday, you indicated to me that you supported the chief's recommendation, and yet 5 hours later, you support a motion that further delays a decision. You're elected as chair to lead the board. It is a full-time job, and you have had ample opportunity to examine the budget. Instead of providing the leadership, you've allowed yourself to be led by 2 members of this board whose interests have had more to do with funding social programs than ensuring a responsible police services budget. You will find that you will not satisfy their appetite, and I think it's striking to note...
Point of personal privilege, Mr. Chairman. In dealing with the police budget, I deal only with the police budget. I have not made any references to social programs. I have focused entirely on the police budget without considering in any way where, if there's any reductions, where those reductions might go. My only role here is in trying to make sure that we're doing our job properly. I'm not considering any other areas of spending when I'm doing that.
Also on a point of privilege, I very much would ask the councillor to remove those remarks. I think that they bordered on smearing certainly myself. What I have said and what I will say, and I'll continue to say, is that of a $700 million practically budget, that to look for a 1 or 2% decrease within that is not that difficult. To me, I take it all in and I look at not reducing any of the safety within our community, not reducing any of the numbers within our community, but taking a good hard look at some of these other lines where we might be able to find efficiencies. And frankly, Councillor, I think you've said that and done that in the past over this budget and other budgets, and I quite resent the fact that you're now targeting 2 members of this board as not being interested in the
Councillor
police
McConnell,
services.
I think in fact
You're
what
right,
you're doing,
I'm mad.
No, but you're doing what Councillor Otis
You're
did
right.
to me.
You're right.
Councillor Otis, if you want to finish, and then I will retort.
Well, no, I think the
But I would say
we've asked that he remove those words.
I would say that one of the problems is there's an acrimonious nature to the conversation, and it's on all sides.
Mr. Heisey, it's not too late to show some leadership. Stand up to those members of this board who have an agenda that is not in the interest of police service.
On a point of privilege, Mr. Chair, I want that removed again. Come on, Councillor, you can't continue this kind of back and forward. The chair has indicated to both of us that we should just tone it down. I'm prepared to tone it down, but not if you keep ratcheting it up.
Essentially, I'm going to call the meeting to a conclusion if you don't stop the attacks, because there's no point in proceeding if we can't proceed civilly, and so far it's not been civil, and it's got to stop. I think everybody supports greater efficiency in government. I think the key is that we don't have fewer officers, that we have, and we use the officers we've got as well as we can.
And when I say look for more, it's obviously the panel that'll be.
Yeah.
So you're 7.5 or 5.6 short.
That's
Is
right.
that as far as you're going to be able to go?
Don't know yet.
For this year?
I don't know yet. In good faith, we're going to look at a little bit more. I don't think we're going to make the whole amount, but we're going to try. And the key for me is I won't do another dime if it compromises the community safety, which is what this is about.
Well, somebody's driving this, obviously, other than
I don't think,
other than the people on the board.
I think the taxpayer is.
Well, no.
Well, I don't know. You don't think so?
I
don't
haven't
believe
heard
in
anything from the
conspiracy
tax.
theories.
I don't know. It's not conspiracy. It has nothing to do with conspiracy. What's driving this acrimony? This
That I can't tell you, and I'm not. You know what happened today. I can't explain it, and
Today,
I hope it stops.
The former head of Toronto's Police Services Board says he hopes to clear his name in a gun controversy that goes before a public inquiry today. Norm Gardner was forced to temporarily step down from his post in June after accepting gifts of a handgun and free ammunition. Reports of a leaked memo are putting the new chair of Toronto's Police Services Board on the defensive, and his supporters say the leaked police memo is part of an orchestrated smear campaign on the board's new chair. The memo reports Heisey saying he understands how someone could be attracted to the beautiful body of an 8-year-old, but not children in diapers. Heisey says he intends to remain as chair of the Police Services Board and continues to support the Toronto Police Service.
Tomorrow the judge is releasing the Heisey report, and I was wondering how the police investigation into how those documents were leaked to the press is going.
Well, it's coming to an end. I haven't seen the outcome, but it should be coming very soon, and I can't prejudge what that is.
Police report.
Yeah, we're working on the leak piece, and that's separate from what...
How is that coming? Is that
It's coming along. We're just about done with it, so that should be forthcoming very soon, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather, because it's,
Pause for one quick second.
yes, sure. You're welcome. Yes. Starting the meeting at 1 o'clock, we'll be starting it probably in 20 minutes or so. In his report, Just Robbins unequivocally states that nothing, and I quote, nothing said by Mr. Heisey on this occasion constituted a breach of the code, and there are no reasonable grounds to believe otherwise. As a result, he recommended, and I quote, that no further steps be taken by the board in this matter.
I'm obviously pleased with Justice Robbins' conclusions. It's been a very difficult time for my family and me. I look forward to going forward, and I would say that we should get this behind the board and behind the police service. We need to go forward and do business, and this is a distraction that no one needs.
The judge said that this was a deliberate attempt to smear Mr. Hyde's reputation. Why would anyone, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think that the judge is very clear on why he suspects that it is, and I have no reason to disagree with him. He says that ultimately it was to get rid of Mr. Heisey either off the board or as the chair of the board. Those are his words, and I have no reason to do anything but to believe him.
Can I ask, you intended to stay on as head of the board?
It's been so much fun.
The other one is that people capitalize on it.
Was it inappropriate that the memo was written in the first place?
Well, I can't get into that because I would like to believe that what was written was passed on for people like myself to make a decision on it. I did, but nothing would justify the memo being released, regardless of what the intent was of the memo being written. But you know, folks, we can point the finger at the police service all you want, but I think it was inappropriate for the media to run with that memo anyway. So.
Chief, sir, you're facing that way. I want the answer to that one question. How did an email that went to you get leaked to the media?
Well, I'm not going to disclose that because that's part of the investigation as to the leak. All I can tell you is that I did not leak it.
This is still private.
Yeah, Sharon's making 9 copies. I told her not to give it to anybody.
Okay, okay. This is still private, but I have the Gardner piece. This is actually,
Here's the start of it.
so well, here's what you need to know. Yeah, you can read the whole thing, but here's what you need to know. The first piece is, here. He has not been removed, but he's been suspended for his whole term.
Which is in effect removal, de facto removal.
The de facto removal. So he's not. But then the other question that we've just been talking about, and I'm going to.
How does the province replace?
Exactly. So I'm going to call Mr. Cohen because, as I understand it, what that would mean is we'd still be one short.
Blake, I don't have a pen. Sorry, Alan, I'm here. I've got no pens, and I'm trying to figure out all of the pieces. Sorry to. So I have shared it. I'm about to share it with the mayor. I've shared it with Case and with John. Nobody has any copies, and the copies will go out at 1 o'clock. The press want the copies, but you know, we're going to be respectful of OCOP's timeline, right? So is it 1 o'clock that it's public? Okay, so 1 o'clock. So I'll make sure they have it at 1. They're all going down, I guess, to Norm's press conference. Do you know whether or not he's? Yes, he's having a press conference at 2 o'clock. I'm wondering if he's going to resign.
So Norm, what's your reaction?
It hurts, and you know, I talked with my solicitors this morning, and we decided that we're going to appeal this decision.
Do you think that the changing of the guard at City Hall might have influenced OCOPs, might have influenced the way that this went on?
I can speculate on it. I can't be definitive about it, though.
Do you have your suspicions?
Pardon me?
Do you have your suspicions?
Yes, I do.
Any comments on how Mr. Heisey was treated?
Well, I mean, that's up to, you know, people to determine.
What's your
know.
thoughts on that? I mean,
Well, I've got
this
thoughts
must be
on it,
interesting
but I'd rather, you know, leave them out right now.
You've always been a very strong supporter of the board. Moving forward, effectively, this does hamper you staying on and appealing it. They're going to have a harder time making quorum, a harder time making decisions. How do you feel about that?
Say, I've got my problems, they've got theirs.
Have you talked to the police in terms of that leak investigation?
Yes, I was interviewed.
What did you tell them?
I told them what I told them. I don't want to get into that. That's up to them too.
Did you leak the memo?
Of course not.
Canada's largest municipal police force is at the center of another internal investigation, the second in 3 years into possible corruption on the Toronto police force.
There are allegations of police corruption involving payoffs for protection. The allegations have led to the head of the police union stepping down and a detective being suspended. The detective is the son of a former chief of police.
Internal Affairs investigators are looking into allegations from bar owners that police officers have been demanding cash and sexual favors. Several transvestite prostitutes say members of the plainclothed unit were abusing their authority.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Julian. As soon as I became aware of these allegations, I took immediate action. I ordered an internal investigation. One officer has since been suspended. The plainclothes unit at 52 Division has been disbanded and other officers transferred elsewhere. A selection process is now underway to restructure that unit. The investigation continues. I anticipate that criminal charges and Police Service Act charges will be laid. We will release the details of any charges as they occur.
Austin Blaine, someone made the comment this force is becoming like LA. What's your thoughts of that?
Well, those are very uninformed comments, to put it bluntly. Anyone can make those allegations, but a few individuals does not constitute a malaise within the police service. And I think in fairness, people have to recognize that the overwhelming majority of our people are decent, honorable, hardworking, dedicated men and women who put their lives on the line every day. And they should not be tarred by any allegations that go forth. This is not the Los Angeles Police Department, I assure you, and I assure the public of that.
So we've got then Councillor Thompson, sir.
Thank you. Chief, good morning. I wonder if you could just walk me through the exercise, please, with respect to how beneficial it would be if you were to have had a helicopter for the force in order to deal with the wide expansive area of Scarborough in terms of getting to the scene of the crime in order to help you in terms of apprehending suspects, if you will. If you can just paint a picture for me, please.
Well, very, very often we have these hit and run kinds of occurrences where there's a shooting and then everybody scatters. Many of these happen in the nighttime. And what we're faced with is trying to respond quickly and also be able to locate evidence and all of those things in very difficult circumstances. A helicopter in today's reality is as important to us as using computers instead of manual typewriters.
So in your opinion, the time has come now for the Toronto Police Service Board and this council to address this issue of a police helicopter to assist you with respect to fighting crime?
The answer is yes, and we have gone through pilot project, study after study. We studied this thing to death, and I guess at the end of the day, being a realist, it just comes down to whether we can afford it or not.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Ford.
I'm going to move that the clause be amended to provide that the funds in the amount of $1.5 million be provided for the purchase of one police helicopter from the capital from the current operating program be increased by $1.5 million and the consolidated grant program be decreased by $1.5 million. That's my source of funding. That is in order. I truly believe, push has come to shove, we have a serious problem with crime in our city. But to have them coming down to count in the last month, begging and pleading for money, I was totally embarrassed to be part of this council. And that's our police. That's the number one people we should support over and above everything is our police. And they're asking for a police helicopter. We have one just in Durham. We have one in Calgary, Edmonton, and we're supposed to be the leading city in Canada or one of the leading cities in North America, and we don't even have a helicopter? You know, it's a haven for criminals to come in here if they know they're not going to be prosecuted or they can take off and not be chased. Okay, it's about time that we just bite the bullet. Like I said, 1.5 million here in council, ladies and gentlemen, is a drop in the bucket for the money we squander sometimes. So really, I hope you consider supporting this. Let's get on with it. Don't tie their hands together more than we have already. Thank you.
Councillor McConnell, questions of Councillor Ford?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Ford, just so I'm understanding it, are you, you're suggesting that council buy the helicopter, or?
No, we give it to the police for them to buy it. That's how it works.
Okay.
We just give them the money. Say, here's, yeah.
Do you recognize the independence of the Police Services Board, who actually make priorities and bring those priorities forward?
Right.
In terms of what their priorities for capital are?
Well, I'm just
and
giving.
Do you recognize that this is not in their priorities?
Well, it's in the priorities of the citizens of this city.
Fair enough.
The world doesn't revolve around just the Police Services Board. They have input from $2.5 million, and if we give them direction from council to say, here's $1.5 million, spend it on a police helicopter, I'm sure they'll spend it on a police helicopter if it's allocated for that specific need.
But you recognize that you don't have, council has no right to direct either the chief or the Police Services Board with regards to any of these budgets.
We have the authority to spend the money out of our budget the way we wish, like we're sitting here for 7 days and debating it.
No, actually we don't, and maybe you need to look at how you've just, I'm just suggesting,
All right.
and trying to be helpful, that you change the way that the motion is, because as such, Mr. Chair, it cannot be accepted. The second one is that I was just wondering, in terms of the operating costs of this, presumably we're not just buying a helicopter, we're buying a helicopter and some people to fly it. Is that the idea? Where is the, what's the operating cost for the helicopter, and where are you getting that?
I'm not the chief of police and I don't allocate the money. I'm not on the Police Services Board. All I'm saying is giving them $1.5 million to get the helicopter in the air. Now they're gonna have to man it, they're gonna have to put electronics in there, they're gonna have to do it, but this $1.5 million will get that helicopter in the air and will save people's lives. And that's the black and white of the issue.
Well, I'm sorry, Councillor.
You can sugarcoat it whatever way you want.
I'm sorry, Councillor. You actually need somebody to drive a helicopter.
And I know
I'm
the
wondering
police have
where the operating budget for this is coming.
Okay, this is coming from operating then. It's not. This is not a capital question then.
Okay, so you need also to have that additional piece, or we'll have a helicopter that's sitting.
Well, this is from operating.
Can you bring that forward so that we can have a full implication? I believe last time we debated it, there were both
Councillor
pieces.
McConnell, we're on the capital.
Yes, I
budget.
understand that.
Okay, you're talking from operating, so let's get to the operating. I'll answer your question. Right now, I'm buying a police helicopter, taking it from the grants, putting up in the air. Everything else will fall in place.
No, you're not putting it up in the air. You're not putting it up in the air until you have an operating budget.
We're not operating, arguing
That's
rather.
fine.
Okay.
Finally, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering whether Councillor Ford came to the budget consultation debates, and whether or not one citizen even, mentioned having a helicopter, because to my knowledge, not one did. So I'm wondering if he knew something about that I didn't know.
Well, actually, yes, I did go to the budget debates with the mayor, and I want to thank him for putting them on. I did meet with our staff sergeant 4 times at 23rd Division, Mr. Tavner, explaining his needs. I have come to the budget meetings through administration meetings. Yes, I have attended many budget meetings. I have talked to thousands of people in my ward and across the city.
Excuse me,
So
I
have.
that wasn't what my question was.
I have consulted with the public.
My question was with regards to police services. Councillor, I was asking about the Police Services Board budget.
Councillor, your time is up.
Okay, but he didn't answer my question,
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Fletcher, you've got questions of your colleague, Councillor Ford.
I'll just start with the last one. Did you attend any of the police services budget meetings and hear anything about any deputants coming forward for a police helicopter?
Yes, I did. Yes, I had many people come forward to me.
At the actual meeting of the police services board with the deputations. Were you physically at those meetings?
What are you asking me exactly?
I'm asking if you attended the meetings of the Police Services Board where the budget was discussed.
No, I wasn't at the Police Services Board meeting.
Thank you,
No,
that was my
I wasn't at-
question. You didn't, and so you did not hear any deputants
Oh,
come
I've heard
forward.
deputants.
No, at the Police Services Board during the budget, ask for a helicopter.
You can walk outside and listen
No,
to people
no,
what they
not-
want.
you know
Why do
what?
they have to
That's
come and
not
beg
my
and
question.
plead
No, no.
in front of socialists like yourself that sit here and ring them all over the polls?
Whoa, withdraw that.
No, I'm
my
not withdrawing.
friend.
It's a fact. I am not withdrawing that because she is a socialist. I am not withdrawing
I
that.
have no problem being a socialist at all, but I don't like being wrung out and say I'm bringing out the police budget.
What's up? Well, how many helicopters did the chief ask the police service board to provide him with this year?
None.
And how many are you asking council to provide you with this year?
None.
So what are we debating?
I don't know. I mean, you have to understand that the board makes decisions about helicopters. A helicopter is not in our operating or capital budget. That doesn't mean it's not something that we should look at, but it's not something we did look at for the purposes of this budget exercise.
Would you like 6?
I don't believe so.
Do you think council's wasting its time right now then? Or should...
I'm not prepared to comment on what council does with its time. I'm here to serve the city, as are they, and they serve the city the way they do, and I serve it my way.
Are you surprised that not one question came from councillors so far about the corruption scandal that's going on with the police force?
No, because that has nothing to do with the capital budget.
Do you mean you'll expect to come up during the operating?
It doesn't have anything to do with the operating budget either.
Well, they're being paid.
Well, that's a bigger question.
Are you at all concerned that the chief is
now that this is a force out of control? When do we go to the top for this?
Well, I've been on the board for 3 years, and I worked with Chief Fantino and the police service for that period of time. I live in this city, have done so for 30 years. I do not believe it's a force out of control. It doesn't mean we don't have problems, but in my experience, the problems when they come up are addressed and dealt with.
Mr. Heisey, it's my understanding that the Police Services Board supports the budget as recommended to Council by the Budget Advisory Committee. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right. And my understanding from the Treasurer, having looked at the numbers, is that this represents the single largest increase in police spending in the history of our city. Certainly since amalgamation, it's the largest in absolute values at $44 million.
Yes, it'd be my expectation, although I do believe that like many aspects of the public service, the police service had gotten a bit behind and there needed to be a catch-up.
Well, many departments at the city.
No, and probably you could say that about a number of areas, and I only deal with the police, so.
Okay. And a couple of questions to Chief. Okay, I take it, Chief, because you report to the board that the board's position that the budget is acceptable is shared by you?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, what we tried to do is follow as much as we could not only the conscience but also the realities, and we tried to at least maintain a level of service that would not deteriorate what we're trying to do in the city in terms of safety, security, quality of life issues.
One issue, I know members of council have questioned you about all sorts of things. One issue that hasn't come up is internal affairs. Do we have the resources necessary to do that job?
We do, Your Worship. What we have done, in essence, is we've stepped that area up. We have a proactive unit in there now, and as much as some of these difficulties are very unpleasant and uncomfortable and regrettable, these are some of the things that we're now dealing with that maybe would not have been detected or dealt with in previous history. I'm personally satisfied that we're marching on.
Terrific. I want to thank you for, I know it's not a question, I want to thank you for your leadership on that issue. It's been really significant and proactive, and I think that's very important.
Thank
so
you,
I just want to confirm, you and Mr. Heisey are both in agreement with this budget as proposed by the Budget Committee?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Mayor Miller.
Confirm or deny that Mike McCormick is now under investigation by Internal Affairs?
I'm not confirming or denying it.
So you can't tell us?
No.
Well, do you have any concerns? This appears to be getting, the problem seems to be getting bigger.
No, it's not getting bigger at all, actually. We're on top of it. We have been all along.
Is there any indication that there will be more officers implicated in this?
Well, the whole situation is very confined, actually. Although names have been thrown out, it isn't a pervasive thing. And my rationale for disbanding the unit was that I thought it was in the best interest of one and all to do this. and allow the investigation to go forward unencumbered. But when all is said and done, there may not be more officers, but then again, there might be. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Councillor Thompson, 5 minutes to question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor, I have just a couple of questions for you, and I guess the first one that I'd like to ask, in essence, what you're saying to us here today is that you support the budget process that has been put in place in order to arrive at a budget, which we are obviously discussing today, which I understand that the Chief of Police has supported, as well as the Chair of the Police Service Board. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And obviously, you're lending your support to the budget that the Chief has indicated that he's happy with, as well as the Chair of the Police Service Board.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor.
I was told to ask those,
Thompson.
George. How's that?
Councillor
The mayor
Nunziata is next.
properly for you? Yeah. Good. Good question.
You used to ask those questions in
Good question.
Councillor Mammoliti. Members of council,
Mr.
please.
Chair, on a point of personal privilege,
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that in my view, I have actually just been offended by the member from Scarborough, from York West, Ward 7. I have been elected to represent my community in Scarborough Centre, Ward 37. The voters there have put their confidence and faith in me to recognize that I can actually ask important questions, whether or not be of the mayor or any other member of this council. I would like to have a retraction from the member. The mayor's office has not prepared any questions for me. Those questions have come from my brain to the mic here and has been directed to the mayor, and I'd like to ask that the member retract that comment, because I am impugned by that statement that he just made.
Councillor, could I ask you to...
Listen, Mr. Chairman, if I offended him in any way, I definitely withdraw, but I tell you something.
Thank you very much,
Councillor.
Councillor. And I accept. That's it. No, Councillor, you're out. Councillor, sit down, please.
Oh, drown me out.
Councillor.
Drown me out. It affects me so I won't be able to sleep tonight. I won't.
Thank you.
I accept the member's
Thank you very much. I have Councillor McConnell.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, the issue before us is whether or not we have sufficient monies in this entire budget to do what I think is important, which is to promote and continue to have a strong Toronto. And a strong Toronto and a safe Toronto is made up of a lot of pieces. And I think of it like a fist, that this is the strength in our neighborhoods, in our whole city. But it's made up of many pieces of that. Perhaps the most important piece of that is, in fact, the policing and emergency services. But surrounding that are our youth services, our children's services, our health services, and our infrastructure, Mr. Chair. And so as part of that, we need to make sure, and our job at the Police Services Board was to make sure that we had an adequate base to do the enforcement and policing piece. Mr. Chair, I would recommend that all of the other motions would be supported. And I thank you for the opportunity to work on the Police Services Board. And I would hope that people would think about the fist, that we need to keep us strong. And we only do that when the fingers are strong. Thank you very much.
Former Police Chief William McCormack has 2 sons in policing in Toronto. This week published report said one son, Billy McCormack, is being investigated in an extortion scandal. The reports also said the other son, Michael McCormack, is being probed over alleged connections to a used car dealership, suspected of being a money laundering front. Michael McCormack lobbied to help a drug-addicted car dealer with links to organized crime.
Stick your mic. I just have.
Morning.
How many more people do you think will be implicated in this?
Systemic is basically that the whole organization, or that it permeates throughout the organization. That's not the case. I think we've got our finger on it. We'll have to wait and see. If it gets to be any bigger or more significant, we'll let you know.
What about the blue wall of silence that was brought up in the RCMP investigation? They said it was very hard to do any kind of investigation because people weren't talking.
Well,
and they were threatening people who would talk.
Well, I think some of that was just rumors and innuendos because there were answers forthcoming in that investigation, and you know the results of that. So it may be that some people are reluctant to speak. That's always the case, doesn't matter who you deal with. But we're determined and committed to get to the bottom of this. The truth will come out.
So why is this not the time to have an external investigative body looking at
It just isn't from the point of view of what work is already ongoing and the kinds of things that are being done, the progress that we're making, all of that. There'll be answers forthcoming to all of these issues, and we're just going to have to be a little bit patient and let people do their work right now.
Good morning. How are you?
When the investigations are completed, we will be in a position to provide the courts, and through them, the public, with a full and frank accounting. And I must stress again that this is and will continue to be a CFSU-led investigation in which Toronto Police Service is a member. Thank you.
Inspector Survey, Bill Dunphy from the Hamilton Spectator. I'm just wondering how an investigation can be independent when the force whose members are being investigated are part of the body that both is doing the investigation and sits on the executive that determines policy and direction for that group. That sounds to me like it's an internal investigation with the involvement of other services.
No, I see it a little differently. CFSU is an independent, autonomous unit which comprises all those other agencies that I mentioned. We do not involve the agencies that are not concerned in terms of the chief or senior management. It is a CFSU-controlled, contained investigation until such time it has to go beyond that.
He's saying that the Toronto police officers attached to CFSU are not on active duty with Toronto Police. Is that the case? How does that work?
No, we have members of the Toronto Police Service as investigators within the CFSU, the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit. Those are investigators, organized crime investigators. If an investigation is launched, doesn't matter what it is, those people will be engaged. They remain a Toronto police officer, but working within that memorandum of understanding as a partnership of within CFSU.
This is an ongoing investigation into organized crime in which there's been implications that officers are involved. Internal Affairs at the Toronto Force is investigating the officers. So where is the independence? Where are we going to get, at the end of the day, an independent assessment of what happened with the officers?
I think I can explain it this way, that whatever the Toronto Police Service does, it can't do it without Mr. Suave's consent. And he's involved, he's in charge. It's the chain of command in this particular matter, even though there are Toronto police officers on the foreground, the chain of command ends with the RCMP.
Hey guys, I'm really sorry. We've got a 7,000 person organization. We've got to keep moving, and I'm grateful for your interest, but I got to keep moving.
But are you not sitting here in a situation where you have to defer to the RCMP?
Well, you have to decide what an independent investigation means. Oh.
Let's wait for the mad rush to be over.
Well, this is what they have. Well, it is.
been a while since I've seen a superintendent run from the press.
Basically what it is. Yeah, it's an RCMP investigation all along. Where's it gonna go?
Strictly while ignoring us.
Only jogging pants now.
I don't understand it at all.
I understand why you
Yeah, we
say
understand that.
but we can't explain it this afternoon. We'll get at it again with you, but I can't do any better than that. Now, we have so much on our agenda.
David, we'll have some other pieces
I
on
need
the...
to go back in the newsroom. Like you, we've got a lot of work. I need somebody to explain this in plain English.
Okay. The independence arises from the fact that the peak of the chain of command in this investigation that concerns the Toronto Police is the RCMP. Now, the fact is that although the officers who are now involved in the investigation, the Toronto Police Service members, are Toronto Police Service members, their actions are ultimately directed by the RCMP. That is why it is an independent investigation.
And they're investigating the corruption allegations against the officers?
That's correct.
They're investigating whatever has arisen in the context of this other investigation.
So what's Internal Affairs doing then?
Internal Affairs is reporting ultimately, their work is supervised ultimately by the RCMP. That's what this is about.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's so confusing.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
I don't know what the headline on it is. RCMP strong arms Toronto Police Services Board.
You think so? No, RCMP rides to Julian Fantino's rescue to save his image. They're stepping up and said what we knew all along, that they were involved in that investigation. That's not news.
I knew we knew this. That's why I don't know why we've been told this. But we don't know what
But
he's
the police
talking
board
about.
has now deferred to them, right? They're saying because of this, we're just going to leave it in there.
But they would have always deferred, wouldn't they have?
No, it was about an internal affairs
That's an the public should have trust that that's an indication of an independent involvement in the investigation.
If there's anything that clinches it, Pam McConnell, Vice Chair of the Police Services Board, doesn't understand. She could not explain it because she doesn't fully understand. So if the public's supposed to understand that, then I don't know what's going on with the police overseers.
Today arising from a separate, ongoing RCMP-led organized crime investigation, which included investigators from the Toronto Police Service Professional Standards Unit, 16 counts comprising 26 criminal charges, have been laid against 4 Toronto Police Service officers.
I feel awful. I feel sick. I feel sick. I mean, it's horrible. But I'm not, I mean, it's no great surprise. But it's just, you wonder when it'll end. Well, and then on the other hand, you know, I said to I don't know if you heard me, I said to the Toronto Star, you know, it's a very sad day, but we have nothing to be ashamed of for shining the light. The light shines, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. That's a good thing to do. And when you shine the light, you find these things happening. So I guess our job is just to keep shining the light as much as we can. Where did Alan go? I wanted to talk to him.
I, Justice Hugh Locke, solemnly swear that I will not disclose any information obtained by me in the course of my duties as a member of the Toronto Police Services Board, except as I may be authorized or required by law. So help me God. You're in.
You.
You want to read your motion, Councillor Fillion, and explain
I'll read them first and then speak to them. That the Toronto Police Services Board further recommend that the Police Services Act be amended to provide that 1, a police officer, including an elected official of a police association, be prohibited from conducting any surveillance, including electronic surveillance, of a member of a police services board, a member of a municipal council, a member of the Legislative Assembly, and a chief or deputy chief of police, either directly or indirectly, except in accordance with a lawful criminal investigation. We've already had a judge conclude that there was an attempt, by persons unknown, to smear our chair with the intention of affecting his ability to carry out his role as chair. I believe there have been attempts to intimidate me for the purpose of controlling my activities as a member of the board. And I've done some research with past members of the board, and people tell me they believe they've been followed, they believe their homes have been watched, they believe that people have been hired to investigate their personal lives. And these are only the common threads. I also heard some stories that were fantastic.
I have a question for Chief Fantino. On resolution number 1, electronic surveillance is illegal, is it not, without some kind of court order? I'm sure Justice Locke has probably even dealt with it. So is there any kind of...
It's absolutely illegal, and my concern is that the things that are being addressed here, for the most part, would be illegal to begin with. I don't want to go back to what was referenced here as what happened to you, Chair, but... Well, but I mean, it was mentioned by Councillor Fillion that the production of that report at the outset was not intended to smear you. It's what happened, as you well recall, that I've taken exception to, as has everyone else, the leaking of that document. To me, this is very problematic, and I know that Chiefs is included in here, but I can't see myself being given this kind of privilege, because in reality, somebody has to do the investigation, and we can't just have on standby other agencies to come in and do the work that is mandated to us, like, unless we don't trust the police in this city. I don't know, like.
I'm not saying for a minute that the police force is involved in this. I'm saying members of the police force, the same as any police officers who may be engaged in illegal activities are just acting as individuals.
So you're basically saying that people are spying on, or you have been connected to some kind of spying activity. You said you have personal experience with it. It's going on as far as you're concerned. It's illegal, we're being told by the chief. Why are you not calling for an investigation, full blown?
Because I can't identify how it happens. It happens very sporadically. It's happened over a period of years. I talked to a large number of previous board members, and every one of them who had questioned anything to do with the police budget or anything to do with civilian oversight, just everybody I talked to had a story.
Members of the board, this past weekend, I learned that a motion would be presented at this meeting, or recommendations made at this meeting, for the purpose of employing an individual to duplicate virtually all of the work I have completed for the service over the last 2.5 years. This motion, in my opinion, is an irresponsible and offensive insult to me. I am particularly disturbed by the scurrilous comments made by you, Mr. Chairman, that appeared in today's Toronto Star, that I worked for the chief. I saw it, I read it. It is obvious that you, Mr. Chairman, as a member of the board at the time of my appointment, did not read or understand the terms of my engagement, despite your recommendations or motions. There will be no interference or stalling on the implementation of my recommendations or the implementation process by you. That is all I have to say.
Well, you said quite a lot, and I'm not going to respond in kind because I will not sink to that level. I will say, however, that any doubt I had as to sponsoring this motion, and I have had doubts, has been resolved in favor of this motion. But it's unfortunate that you would air your feelings in this manner and not do them to me directly, which you did not do me the courtesy of doing. And I think we should end this discussion, and I'm sorry that it's gone where it has.
All right, copies of my remarks are ready for the press.
Well, you should be, well, I'm very sorry that you would feel the need to do that.
The timing of this motion I find somewhat distressing. What is the reason behind all of this? How can it be justified, and how can all this work be basically ignored or downplayed while it's still very much in progress? And I have to admit, speaking with my management team, my command team, and that, we're all quite confused, Mr. Chairman and members.
The idea behind this motion is not about a lack of confidence in this service or your integrity, of which I have not the shadow of a doubt, or your competence, or Justice Ferguson's competence. The issue is, what's this board doing to ensure that it's doing its job? And this motion is more about the failings of this board, its historical failings, in my respectful submission, than it is about the failings of this service.
This board has oversight and does not and must not interfere in the running of the police service, which in my respectful view, and speaking only for myself, is doing just fine. You're cleaning house. Your house has needed cleaning for any number of reasons in the ordinary natural course of things for a long, long time, and on occasion it has been cleaned out to the king's taste. I see no corruption. I see nothing endemic by way of corruption in the police force at all, and if I did, I wouldn't be on this board. I'm going to propose that Justice Ferguson's remarks, which have been recorded, be ordered and received and studied, and that this motion be adjourned. And in the meantime, I respectfully suggest to the police service, as well as to the police services board, that we get back the chemistry and the mutual respect that we must have and you are entitled to receive. That's what and I move that right now.
All in favor? Opposed?
How many are opposed?
3.
Good day.
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Dr. Lau?
For the same reason, I will stay for the vote. I think that's a conflicting message to the public on one side.
Clearly, the board is dysfunctional. When you have board meetings fail because people walk out to prevent the board, duly appointed, elected officials making decisions, you clearly have a dysfunctional board. And either they, I'm at a loss as to what to say, except to say that the public should not have confidence. The public should be concerned. There is a problem, and I'm contemplating talking to the province, because if this board can't function, somebody has to. And there's important business that we needed to do. Forget this independent review. We had important business to do today.
Why is the board?
I must confess, if this happens one more time, I'll resign. I wanted to thank everybody for coming this evening. This is a special evening meeting of our board to deal with one issue, which is whether we should have a new complaint system in this province dealing with complaints about police misconduct, and if we should, what it should look like.
It is important to remember that the police are among the most powerful members of our society. The scrutiny of the police's use of their power and position by an independent body is not an affront to the important work that they do. Rather, it provides insurance that the public can maintain its respect and trust in our officers. The complaints board or body must, first and foremost, be independent of the police. That means that it must be comprised of civilian members at all stages: intake, investigation, adjudication, and review.
There has to be an independent body, investigative body. It has to include, especially, and I think mainly, people from the community. I didn't select you. I didn't select any of you. Is that fair to civilians? If you're talking about a civilian body, are we not the civilian body? Okay, so when did we select any of you?
Many African Canadians feel that the current police complaint system is not fair or accessible, and it does not promote transparency and accountability. There is fear of reprisal from the police if a complaint is lodged against the police officer accused of misconduct. Community members feel intimidated when they have to enter a local station to file their complaint about the behavior of an officer from the same division, knowing that they are going to investigate themselves.
If we could live in a society where there would be no need for a complaint system because the officers knew instinctively how to behave, we would be living in utopia, and we recognize that such a society cannot exist, for we are dealing with human beings.
Police Chief Fantino does not have the skills, willingness, nor the capability to address racism.
I think that's out of order. I don't think insults of anybody in this room
It is
are
not meant
appropriate.
as an insult. It is to clearly show, if I could just for a minute, no disrespect
Well,
is
that-
really
that's a
meant.
That's a better start. So
Okay,
starting
no
from a no
disrespect is meant.
Okay, so
We're looking at this as a serious issue, and we are purporting, all of us in this room, to really want to change and to rearrange and to support and have accountability and have transparent. But we are not looking at the full picture. How do we really and truly get to an equitable, accessible, accountable, and effective complaints process? Please allow me to say, this is no disrespect to Mr. Fantino. However, you must then have the willingness. I, however, would like to see you here in 10 years if I
The Toronto Police Chief's contract won't be extended, and that resulted in chaos last night at City Council. The Police Services Board announced late in the afternoon that Julian Fantino's contract will end next March. He had been hoping for an extension. Some councillors are angry the chief won't be staying on. And as David Michael Lamb reports, they blame the mayor.
Police Chief Julian Fantino says he's disappointed he didn't get a contract extension, and he says he has no idea why the board wants him to leave.
I haven't got a reason.
You took calls with the mayor on Monday. Was it unanimous, this decision?
Can't give you that either.
Is it a vote? How does it work, this decision? Is it something that
A decision was made not to extend his contract. As such, that was the decision that was made. That was the only decision that was made, and that's the way it is. And you have that in front of you.
Were there other alternatives that you had? Were there other alternatives?
John, I'm not
Is the
able
door
to discuss
completely
that.
closed, though? So it's completely decided. So if with new members, it can't be reopened. It's completely decided.
The board has decided.
Okay.
All right, folks.
The question is, how are you, Chief?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, life goes on. Yeah.
Are you surprised by the decision?
I'm disappointed. I had asked for a renewal, and obviously there's a lot of good work has been done by the men and women of the Toronto Police Service. A lot of challenges met, and certainly there's challenges still to deal with. And I'm proud of the work that we've done, and I'll be continuing to do that work, and we will continue to do that work until I'm gone. I mean, that's the way it works.
What do you say to the criticism that you weren't effective in cleaning up internal corruption on the police force?
There'll always be critics, and there'll always be those who never see, the full extent of what you do. All I know is that we are the ones that looked at these issues. We're the ones that look deep
and we're the ones that probed, and we're the ones that put these issues forward in a very transparent kind of way. If the inference is that corruption happened when I came here, or that I am somehow responsible for it, then I'm afraid that there's a lot of cynicism in that view. Okay? Thank you, folks. Take care. Thanks. Thank you.
Them to stand up and explain to Torontonians why they voted the way they did. That's against the law. It's not against the law. It is not against the law. It's not.
It's against the Police Services Act.
They'd
be reprimanded.
It is now public information. Everyone knows about the vote.
But they'd have to say how they
not
voted.
against it.
They, us as members of
They
council,
can talk to you about
to
that.
request permission of this council and to have a motion forward to discuss our support for the chief and to send that message on to the police service.
You can
board.
do that, but you can't do what he's saying.
Yes, we can, and you're right, and the mayor is wrong, because you said we can, and you're absolutely right, and the mayor says we can't even discuss that.
Yes,
He won't even allow us to
stand up
discuss
and
it,
give
they
their
won't even
opinion. Why
accept the
They can't,
motion.
but you wanted them to tell you how they voted.
Absolutely, and Torontonians should know why they voted the way they voted. And if we're wrong about it, they should tell people that we're wrong about it.
So is it true that you voted against him?
I'm not going to tell you how I
You
voted.
told Rob Ford.
I
Why can't you
didn't.
tell
No,
him?
Rob Ford made an assumption. Okay.
He said that you told him.
He may have drawn a conclusion because I support the chief. I continue to support the chief. I haven't wavered in any situation where I haven't supported the chief.
Did you tell him who else voted?
No.
Well, why did he
So
say
is
he
he
did?
right?
Well,
Is he
I
right?
didn't tell.
Did you tell him
no.
what the vote was?
Rob Ford made his own conclusions. Okay.
It's not true.
It's not. You know.
Did he tell you or
no,
not? Did
no,
he tell you that
no.
you
He didn't tell me how he voted. He didn't tell me anything. I put one on one together. It was very straightforward.
Why did you tell us that he told you? You
I
set
didn't
up
say
the.
that. I asked these guys. I said, Case Otis, from what I know, voted in favor of the chief. And as far as I know, he did. That's my.
Is he right about that?
And how the other two voted, I presume they didn't
You
know
have
it.
to figure out how people voted. I
said
support the
you may
chief.
stick up for a socialist mayor because you may be a socialist reporter. Because I don't agree with that, John. John, the bottom line
What
is
is true? What you're saying
what I
now or
said,
what you're saying
but
then? What's
Pam
the truth?
McConnell
Are you gonna
and
answer?
John Fillion. See, sure, walk away. It's the easiest way to do it. Pam McConnell and John
Answer
Fillion,
the
from what
question.
I said. Okay.
Answer the question.
All right.
Why did you just call him a fat fuck?
Yeah. Why did you say that? Why did you say that? Well,
Why did you just call him a fat fuck?
You did. You did. You said that.
Barbara,
You did that.
why did you? I just heard you.
That's
called
right.
him
You
a fat
heard
fuck.
it. Okay. What did you say? What did you just say?
You just called him a
You
fat
called
fuck.
me a fat
Why
fuck
did you
right
call
now.
him a
You
fat
did.
fuck?
You just did.
Why did you
Are you
just
gonna
do
lie
that,
about
Barbara?
that? Are you gonna lie
Hey,
about
Barbara,
that,
why did
Barbara?
you just
Are you
call
gonna
him a
lie
fat
about that?
fuck?
You said that.
You just
You
called
just said
him
that
a
with a
fat
witness.
fuck. Why did you do
Okay,
that?
where are you
I'd
going,
like to know what
John?
your editor says about this. I'd like to know what your editor says about this, Barbara.
John, why are you going away? Can't you face the music? Why can't you say that? Why can't you say that? Why can't you say that? What you said? Yes, you did. You called me a fat fuck right in front of it. Right in front of it. Why did you do it? That's exactly what you did. No, no. I want to know if you were a man.
Why did you do it?
If you were a man.
Why did you do it?
No, that is not a process. That is an assault. That is a verbal assault. That is a verbal assault. That is a verbal assault. No, I am standing right here.
Why did you do it?
That's exactly.
I want to know why you
You
said
said
it.
that. You said that. No, this is a public space.
I'd like to know why you said it.
Why did you say that? You said that right
Why
there.
are you running, Barbara?
Why are you running, Barbara?
Rob, come on. Rob, forget it. That's what you should be covering. That's what you should be covering.
Going off the edge there?
As you know, we're here to update the public on our attempt to keep the chief here in the city of Toronto, and we owe this information to the public, seeing that the response to the petition, as you're going to hear in just a few minutes, is overwhelming. And we know that we are on to something that this city wants us to do, and we are going to continue doing it.
Let's just.
Go in front of it?
Yeah, go in front of it. But we're gonna wait for some of these guys have to sit up.
Come. We're gonna just walk out together. We're just waiting for the other media to come, and we're heading down.
Judge, don't be too critical about the mayor, because that's going to scare a lot of councillors off. Like two just walk away. Who did? is recruiting.
But he's got to go back to committee.
I don't know whatever it is, but just try.
We're gonna walk? Yeah. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
George, should Fantino decide to run for mayor of Toronto, would you support him?
Listen, I want Chief Fantino to be the chief of police in this city. That's what we want. I want it. The people in the city, this city want it. If for some reason 1 year down the road Chief Fantino decides to run for mayor, I have no problems whatsoever on a personal level saying that I would support a man like that to be the mayor of the city.
Very live, right?
Get in the background.
In another development, Toronto's police union has waded in and says it supports the decision not to rehire Fantino. In a statement released yesterday, Al Olson, the acting head of the Toronto Police Association, says replacing the chief is the best way to restore public confidence. Olson adds that some people are playing politics with the police by manufacturing a power struggle between Fantino and the mayor. And that's a reference to a move today by a handful of city councillors who want to reopen the debate over Fantino's contract. But the union statement has raised the ire of the chief, according to Toronto Police spokesperson Mark Pugash.
The chief takes great issue with the association's statement, and they mentioned this 3 times in the course of their statement. It talks about regaining confidence.
The worst thing to do is be seen in. This is a grassroots thing, right? So let them walk. We don't want to give the impression that that we're, this is grassroots. It's grassroots driven. The whole petition.
Welcome to our press conference today. My name is Debbie Douglas and I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants. Today we have 4 people who are here to speak about what our various communities feel about what has been happening here in the City of Toronto politically around the police chief position here in Toronto. It is unfortunate that we are unable to use our City Hall to hold this press conference, but it's a nice day, so we'll get started right away.
I think it is time that the city actually steps back and says we have set up a process which is meant to bring some accountability and transparency and let that process work.
What's your concern with the chief himself?
What's my concern with the chief? I like the chief. He's a good man as long as he's not the police chief of the city. Because as far as I'm concerned, his time is over.
There has been numerous complaints about racism and nothing has been done under his leadership. To this day, we the black youth in our community are still being stereotyped as criminals and thugs. This call is not only not to renew his contract, but to make sure that his replacement go through a thorough equity screening to make sure our chief is free from racism.
Police Services Board is empowered by statute to make decisions around issues such as appointment of the chief of police, and that decision has already been made. For the city councillors to now challenge that decision is to undermine the very concept of civilian oversight.
About 2 months ago, my 17-year-old brother, Jeffrey, was shot 3 times in the back and later died from serious injuries at Sunnybrook Hospital. And I just think the public should know that it was under Chief Julian Fantino's command and leadership that one of his police officers was able to shoot my brother and kill my brother.
Should address the crowd and just tell them what.
That just because a lot of people support the chief doesn't mean that the city council then goes and dismantles its democratic institutions that it has created for a particular purpose. Don't go to city council and tell them take away the one democratic and accountability institution that we have because suddenly it doesn't suit our purpose. That's what democracy is.
Notice motion J23, request of Toronto Police Services Board to rescind
decision respecting Chief of Police. Members of Council, I propose to make a ruling on this motion, and the rules oblige me to rule before a motion is introduced. At the last Council meeting, as members know and the public may not, Councillor Mammoliti raised this issue, and at the time I said that it was inappropriate to be debating a personnel matter from the Police Board at Council. I have since had an opportunity to review the Council procedural bylaw and the Police Act and consider this matter fully. And there is absolutely no question in my mind that it is wrong for this Council to be debating what is essentially a personnel matter before the Police Services Board. So therefore, I will be ruling this motion out of order.
Mr. Mayor, I think that the Chief and the public deserve to have a clear-cut vote on this matter, which can only come about, I believe, by the new board looking at the matter. And that's why I don't intend to debate the personality of the Chief. We don't have any employment records. Or
Are you challenging the chair, Councillor?
I will be challenging the chair, Mr. Mayor, but I thought I should at least tell you why I'm going to do it.
And all those in favour or opposed to the ruling, please press your buttons.
Councillor Mammoliti, just a second. Mr. Mayor, this might be the closest thing I guess we're going to get to a vote on whether this council supports the Chief or not.
Okay, all those in favour or opposed to upholding the ruling of the chair, please press your buttons.
On a point of order, Mr. Mayor, you're not being fair to the citizens of Toronto, Mr. Mayor.
I'm following the rules,
You're not
Councillor.
being fair to the citizens of Toronto.
Point of personal privilege, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ford.
I've been asked to ask you a question on behalf of my constituents in Etobicoke North. Will you resign as mayor, please?
There is a vote open. Please indicate if you're in favour or opposed of upholding the ruling of the chair by pressing your button. Voting. All those in favour or opposed to upholding the ruling of the chair,
Councillor
please
Kelly,
press your buttons.
please. Councillor Delgrand.
Councillor Grimes, Councillor
Mr. Mayor.
Palacio, Councillor Nunziata,
Councillor Lepretti.
Councillor Hall.
Mr. Mayor.
I'll recognize you when the vote's finished, Councillor.
Councillor
No, I want to
Lepretti,
be
please.
recognized
Councillor
before
Hall.
the vote is taken.
Councillor Palacio.
Boy, it's amazing how some members of council want to sweep this under the rug, eh? I mean,
Councillor
it's
Delgrand,
disgusting.
please.
It's really disgusting what these
Councillor
councillors are
Mammoliti.
doing, and especially you, Mr. Mayor. When you ran for mayor, you talked about honesty and integrity in this council. Look what you're.
On a point of order, Mr. Mayor.
No, sit down.
Councillor Lepretti, please.
Councillor Mammoliti, could we have your vote,
Mr.
please?
Mayor.
I'll recognize you when the vote is over, Councillor.
The chair is upheld. The vote is 24 to 19.
Okay, the chair has been upheld. Notice of motion J28. Facilitate purchase of 530 and 532 St. Clair Avenue West and lease of a strip of land 520